Welcome, everybody. It's a special edition episode of
The Apocalypse Bros.
where we're going to talk about Star Wars because guess what? It's
Star Wars Day!
so stay tuned because we'll be right back. All right, we're back with the Apocalypse Bros on our special Star Wars Day edition. Happy May 4th. May the 4th be with you. That's right. May the 4th be with you. So today we're actually doing a couple different things. So one, we're going to be pairing with NQR, a podcast that's going to be hosting a chunk of this episode. So check them out. And what we're going to be doing is just kind of discussing a topic of Star Wars that we've kind of been assigned, for lack of better words. Sly, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about a showdown of monstrous proportions, if I can use that word. And we're going to be talking about a couple of monsters that we think would win in an all-out battle royale.
Battle Royale with cheese. That's right. So, yeah, we're going to be talking about which monster would win, just kind of bunch of monsters that we took from the Star Wars universe. We put them all together in our heads. I mean, that's as far as we really got with that. And then we said, who's going to win? We're going to talk later in this episode. So we're going to give you a rundown on some of the runners-ups. And we're also going to tell you the rules of the competition that we kind of came up with as far as choosing which monsters we chose. And then we're going to have later on, we're going to have a special guest on. He is our Star Wars expert that we found, and he's going to be deciding the winner between the two monsters that we chose. So that's going to be exciting. I'll give you guys a rundown of the rules. So the rules were the creatures must be considered non-sentient, so it can't be living, breathing, thinking per se, like outside of a monster or a creature intellect, I guess. The creatures cannot...
only reason I didn't choose Jar Jar Binks.
Exactly. He would have won. Yeah. He's a Sith Lord secretly.
Yes, OP.
Yes, absolutely OP. Creatures can't be planet size, so there's a couple creatures out there like the Exogorth or the Space Slug, as it's also known as. You see that in Episode 4 when they kind of the Millennium Falcon lands on the inside of that asteroid, and then they leave after they realize that, oh my gosh, we're inside something. This giant worm tries to eat them. Nothing that big, just because it's OP. It's just, why would we even have a competition?
How does that fight something? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it could just literally eat a planet, like a small moon, a Death Star. Why didn't they use that as a weapon against a Death Star? Oh my gosh.
Weaponize the giant slugs.
Dude, they did, apparently, in the comics.
Oh.
That was a real thing.
There you go.
But anyways, that would have been a great weapon used against the Death Star if they had thought of that.
Fire the slugs!
Fire the slugs!
Stay on target, slugs. Stay on target. Follow your plot there. I can't shake him. He's got soap. He's got soap.
That's the way you defeat them. All right, so third rule, creatures cannot be artificially created or otherwise enhanced, such as those created by Sith alchemists, for example. So a couple examples of these from some of the comics and things like that. There's the Leviathan. That was depicted in the Jedi Academy Leviathan comics. Creatures like that were created as opposed to natural.
Well, I think that even like the Act Dogs, they were really, if not even just created, but enhanced in labs in order to actually go down and chase the Jedi. I mean, that was their whole plan, was to kill the Jedi.
Exactly. Yeah, anything that was kind of artificially adjusted outside of its normal capabilities.
Because that's not fair.
It's not fair. That's not fair, Bobby. I feel like we should do Star Wars accents if it's going to be fair. That is not. All right. Fourth and final rule: creatures must be reasonably able to survive in kind of a diverse climate and terrain. And we're going to talk about that in a couple of the creatures that we kind of had as runners-up. So obviously, if a creature can only survive in a very specific climate, like for instance underwater, because it has gills, it's not really fair to throw it in a battle royale because either it's going to have the advantage because the battle will take place in the water, or it'll take place on land, and then it has absolutely no chance because it will just die.
We'll just have to create like a dome underwater, like in SpongeBob.
Oh, yeah.
We'll just have to put a giant bowl of water on his head, or
sure. Kind of like a reverse of
yeah,
Sandy Cheeks.
Exactly, yeah.
And I mean, it would work. All right, so we'll go over some of our runners-up. Any runners-up that you want to intro right off the bat here, Sly?
Yeah, so I think one of the runner-ups that we had on there, I had the Sarlacc. So the problem with with the Sarlacc that makes it even tough to decide on how to fight is the fact that it's this giant creature. Generally, basically, it hides, in the sand. Obviously, we see it when just before they find Jar Jar, or not Jar Jar Binks, the other
Episode 6.
yeah, episode 6, not Jar Jar Binks.
No.
5 episodes later. No, but Jabba the Hutt, where he actually throws his, he talks about throwing people into it and stuff, and frightening because people actually live for thousands of years while they're being digested somehow by this acid that is in it. So, but it is giant and it eats pretty much everything. But the tough thing about it, really trying to decide on if it would be a formidable creature fight, is that it really, once it becomes large enough and older, it doesn't really move. It kind of sits, anchors itself in place and waits for its prey and uses this beak and tongue to lure it in. So
kind of underground, yeah.
So a creature would pretty much have to get close enough for it to grab it. And if the creature is big enough, maybe it wouldn't. So that was the reason why I did not choose the Sarlacc.
Yeah. Although it is definitely a formidable beast.
Oh, yeah. It's scary.
Absolutely. Another one we talked about, and again, this kind of goes back, well, a little bit goes back. There's the Sando Aqua Monster from Star Wars Episode 1 when they're, in the little bungalow thing floating through
huge.
The water, Naboo, and there's the fish, and then there's another fish, and then that fish gets eaten by a bigger fish, and then Qui-Gon Jinn says there's always a bigger fish. That's the Sando Aqua Monster, that big thing that's just walking around underwater. It's huge. I mean, we're talking like hundreds of meters or so.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why we chose it as a runner-up, again, it lives underwater. That could be kind of an issue. Although technically, it did say that it was what's the word I'm looking for, where they can come on land or sea.
Surf and turf.
Yes, it's a surf and turf beast, and obviously that means it technically could come on land. It could do its thing. It did talk a lot about how it had to be eating constantly, just because it was so big.
Yeah,
and it was slow, and so that was kind of what killed it for me. Was just I always kind of cheer for the fast, speedy guy.
Sure, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I just felt like Sando Aqua Monster just was either going to be too slow, or he's just not going to even be able to upkeep himself while he's fighting against the monsters.
It's going to be like, what's my snack?
Yeah, exactly. Like, you could just dodge him for a while, and he's just going to pass out from lack of calories. So those are 2-1. I don't know. Do you got another one?
I guess just for interesting sake, because we really don't see it much. But we do. We talked about. I looked up. The Wampa Beast would have been interesting. Just obviously what he did. Luke, kind of a classic scene there. But he was interesting. I don't think he's quite large enough really to hold his own against some of the bigger monsters, which is one of the reasons I didn't choose him. But I would think it'd be kind of cool to see him actually in a battle, more than just kind of hunting down his next meal.
He doesn't have the size, but he definitely has probably a little bit more intellect than some of these other creatures.
I mean, his whole thing is really being sneaky and stuff. So the problem is he doesn't really have a hide that holds its own against blasters or anything like some of these other creatures. They have armored hides. I mean, he's really kind of like this giant Yeti type creature. So, but I mean, he would be part of formidable if he could sneak up on somebody and grab a hold of them.
It was really fun to play as the Wampas in the original Star Wars Battlefront 2 games. You just run around and you're like just smacking people. It's hilarious. You could send them flying pretty good too.
Yeah, just tear apart.
They're strong, but yeah, like you said, I mean, they're not going to be invincible against everything. Yeah. So, and they don't have like massive size like some of these. Like like the one that actually was my immediate runner-up, the one that I just really was having a hard time deciding. I ended up deciding on something else. I didn't choose this one, obviously, but I really wanted to choose this one, and that is the Zillo Beast, which is seen in Star Wars: The Clone Wars. This thing's it's really hard to describe it. It's huge, obviously. It goes running amok through Coruscant, I believe, in the episode.
Yeah, and he's almost like sort of octopus-like. He's got this sort of tentacle, but he like runs on them and stuff. And just kind of almost War of the Worlds type
fast.
Style.
He's mobile. He's
huge.
got grab.
He just like crushes people and like things underneath his feet without even knowing it.
Absolutely. I mean, he's a beast.
Yeah.
He's the Zillo Beast. So he's definitely a versatile creature. There's the Acklays from Star Wars Episode 2. Do you see them? They're the big green bug-looking things, but like big, kind of reptile bug-looking. They're also in Star Wars Battlefront 2. If you play like the story mission, you have to fight those. It's terrifying. They come crawling at you, skittering at you, and their arm or legs are like blades.
Yeah, they're kind of like giant praying mantis.
Like things. That's a good description of it. The Rancors, that's a classic. We're all afraid of the Rancor. Episode 6.
Another thank you to Jabba the Hutt there.
Oh, absolutely.
Having his own little.
What a jerk, right? Interestingly enough, I actually read a comic that was strictly about Jabba the Hutt. way back when, and I have to say it's one of my favorite Star Wars comics.
Oh yeah,
because when you really get down to it, he is insanely clever. Like he is a conniving SOB.
oh yeah. Well, I mean, the Hutts. The whole thing about the Hutts is that they were basically these mafia type guys. I mean,
Yep.
they because of their make was basically a giant, bulbous gel made creature.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't really do much, right? I mean, their bones really didn't do anything. They pretty much only sit there. But
Yeah.
they were so clever in the way that they would barter and trade and stuff. That They would end up
Exactly.
creating this empire that they were able to be kind of like mob bosses and just kind of these types of guys. So
Absolutely. Yeah, they're insanely smart.
Yeah.
All of them really are, but yeah, Jabba's definitely up there. I apologize because I'm sure there's somebody out there that probably actually does know Huttese. I'm sure.
Sorry for any language.
Yeah,
that we
my
just said.
apologies. It always blows me away too how like they come out with these giant freaky monsters, and you kind of have to sit there and be like, okay, but like who managed to get that?
Right?
Who managed to catch that thing? That's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
That's it's a good point.
So I'll just list off the rest that we haven't mentioned so far. We won't get too deep into them. There's the Rathtars, Star Wars Episode 7. They were kind of the monster that you see in there. Krykna, you see that in Star Wars Rebels. The Vixis, you see that in the Clone Wars.
Fast cat-like creature.
Yes, very much so. The Dragon Snake, it's referenced in Star Wars Episode. Oh, you do
Slither.
kind of see it. It's the thing that eats R2-D2 when Luke lands on Dagobah where Yoda is. But you never really see much of it. I think you literally see like a scale come out of the water, like a shark almost. But it's also in Star Wars The Clone Wars. They mentioned it there. And then there's the Lilac, which is one that I found, and it's shown in the Lords of the Sith book. So you don't even really see it. You read about it. Darth Vader himself and Darth Sidious actually go up against like a whole army of these things, which is kind of interesting to say the least, that two Siths actually have to fight and struggle to some extent in defeating. Granted, it is an army, but they're kind of spider-like, which I'm usually not a fan of.
Right. Another one too is interesting. That once again we don't really, I don't believe we actually see them in movies, but it is talked about and kind of in lore and myth of Star Wars monsters is the Terrantatic. Terrantatic. So they are actually basically they're kind of pests on Wookiee homeworld. So and not pests like you would think, but they are giant. So they live on the kind of the Wookiee homeworlds, kind of issues with known to be kind of attacking them and stuff. So one's kind of sharp spines, large heads, large tusks type of thing. Kind of this scary creature that can just grab you and eat you type of thing, chop your head off. And then secondly, there's kind of another one about it, and this one actually is looks similar, but because of wonderful genetic engineering, which is why we couldn't have it in any way, but it actually is also venomous. So they were able to, the Sith actually were the first ones to they infused basically the Rancors with the power of the dark side and began breeding the first Terrantatic. So we can thank them for that.
Those jerks. I mean, if it's something that Wookiees are scared of, I'd be concerned.
Right.
Those things are beasts. So those are, like we said, those are our runner-ups. Those are the rules. We're going to jump into the next section here with our special guest, Star Wars expert. His name is Aaron. We'll be kicking him in here in a second. And we're going to tell him what our finalists that we chose were, and then he's going to look at those two, and he's going to tell us what he thinks would win in a fight.
Yep.
All right, we're here with our guest star on our special Star Wars special episode. I said special twice, and that's okay. We do that here because we're that special.
It's
Extra special.
Dun, 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 dun. So again, we are talking about if there was a battle royale between the Star Wars monsters, what monster or creature, otherwise whatever you want to call it, would win. We prefaced the rules already, and we're going to talk a little bit about our personal choices, but I want to intro our special guest here, who is a Star Wars expert. And so, of course, we got him on. It took us a while to find him because the forums are down because, post-apocalypse. It's hard to find experts anymore for anything. But sure enough, we managed to find ourselves a Star Wars expert. His name is Aaron. He's here with us today.
Yeah, hi, I'm Aaron. Glad to be on the show.
Awesome. We appreciate having you on.
You contacted me through smoke signals and all that. So
Yeah, I know. And actually, our producer, Anthony, actually taught us how to to do smoke signals. He's a raccoon. He's our producer.
Yeah. He accidentally taught us. Actually, he was just waving his arms with one of his rabies spouts, and he actually drew in some people, and that taught us. Okay, that's how you get a hold of people.
Mm-hmm. He had actually started the fire initially.
Yes.
I don't think he was trying to make smoke signals.
No,
it just happened.
It's just But thank you, Anthony. Shout out. Anthony.
And thank you, Aaron, for being on our show. So, Sly and I are just going to throw out kind of our creatures that we prefer. We're going to talk a little bit about them. Probably won't go into too much detail necessarily, but we'll talk about what it is, what it does to some extent, and hopefully you can give us some insight on. You're being the Star Wars expert today, so we're going to let you decide who.
You're really tooting my horn right now.
I'm tooting your horn. There's a whole band, and we're all tooting the horn of Aaron, the Star Wars expert.
One horny band.
Well, I'll do my best.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate it. So, I don't know, Sly, did you want to talk about yours first, or you want me to talk about
Yeah,
it?
so my creature is the Gorog. So we're not looking at necessarily a creature that we've seen in a lot of movies and not necessarily something that stands out when you think of the lore of the Star Wars universe, but the Gorog really is one of those creatures that I wish would kind of get screen time in kind of one of these big movies. And I mean, he's one of these just immense creatures that, I mean, he's so large that literally with one hand he could clutch and just like crush a Rancor with his hand. So, I think he's probably one of the most powerful ones that we see actually attempt to fight something in the Star Wars universe.
And he was in Star Wars The Force Unleashed 2 game.
Correct.
If I remember. Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
That's not canon.
It's not canon.
Yes, he's not. He's not canon. But we didn't talk about things that were canon. I
didn't write that as a rule.
Yeah,
I should have wrote that as a rule.
So I mean, but he was in a game we talked. So that was one of my creatures only because he was really the only creature that I could find that made for a good battle against Skylar's creature.
That's right.
All right. I've heard stories of the creature you talked about. So.
All right. Do you feel like he's got a chance in a battle against some of the other big creatures from the Star Wars universe?
Oh yeah, definitely. He's a big boy.
He's a big boy. We like them big boys. All right, so SOS here. I'm gonna throw out my creature that I chose, which is the Greater Crate Dragon. So you have the Crate Dragon, which you hear about a lot. It's native to Tatooine. It's a dragon. It's like the dragon from Star Wars, which sounds a little cheesy almost to say it, but at the same time, like it's a real thing. I believe, if I remember correctly, the Sand People, Tusken Raiders,
Tusken
yes.
Raiders, yeah.
So they would often hunt the crate dragons as like, your symbol of manhood in a sense. You don't get thrown out into the well, you do get thrown out into the wilderness, but it's not like here go survive. It's here go kill a crate dragon and bring back stuff from it, like its bones.
Mm-hmm.
So you got the Greater Crate Dragon, which is basically just a bigger, scarier, deadlier version of this.
Yeah, he's a
get
big
up
boy.
to like another big boy. And get up to like 100 meters. Yeah, very big boy.
Meters. I went like I couldn't. I was going through all my books that I've been able to scrounge up throughout this, but I couldn't find the size of the Gorog.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we can kind of assume like a Rancor fits in its hand.
Yeah.
So we can kind of picture based on that.
Yeah, from some of the pictures that are based off of kind of a comic drawing, it looks like his head's about the size of a human. And his arm, like I said, his arms
shaped
are
like a human, or
he's kind of, he's bipedal. He's a bipedal creature, so
he's kind of ape-like.
Yeah,
looking.
he really is. So
it's like a King Kong.
Yeah, he's
like
got tusks
big.
coming out of his mouth. So
yeah, he's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And so then you got the Crate Dragon. Now, you don't actually see a living, breathing Crate Dragon in any of the movies or any of the media, really. I believe in episode 6, you actually see a skeleton of one.
I believe so. Also in episode 4, Obi-Wan uses the sound of the Crate Dragon to scare off the Tusken Raiders
Gotcha. That was that weird noise he made.
From killing Luke, basically.
Gotcha. Okay. So obviously, if Tusken Raiders are afraid of it, that's a sign.
Yeah.
Those guys is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, that's the battle we've got. That's the two creatures we came up with. As we talked about a lot of creatures earlier. These are the two that kind of popped up as the biggest, scariest, baddest creatures in the Star Wars universe. These are the two were thrown into the Coliseum or whatever against each other. Aaron,
Gotcha.
what are we looking at here?
So you guys probably picked some of the hardest creatures to fight, and or find information about.
Yeah, sorry.
No,
I guess we should have gone a little bit more like we should have consulted with you by smoke signal, but unfortunately, there's a lot of limitation to what you can say by smoke signal.
I mean, I was gonna do the Sarlacc, but the Sarlacc usually sits in the hole and just waits to eat its prey. So that was my.
Yeah. Surprised none of you picked this creature.
Oh, the Sando Aqua monster.
Yeah, I thought about picking that one, but I didn't know how that would work. You know, are we gonna fight on land? You know, are we gonna fight? Because he's like enormous
He's
as well.
huge.
Yeah.
Well,
there's always a bigger fish.
And that, land and like where they're fighting, the environment takes such a huge factor of who would win on this.
Sure.
Because the greater crate dragon has, would have better, movability and stuff like that during in a desert environment versus, maybe the gory in like a more freeable, non-dry space. It just depends on where their environments go, but going based off of just an environment that's neutral to both of them,
You can be honest.
I'm thinking as logically as I can, because the Krayt dragon has a venom,
right.
So that's another factor. But then Gorg also also has 2 hearts.
True. Take one out and he's still going.
Yep. So, but the thing is, like, the Gorog can hold a Rancor in his arms and probably just crush it / bite its head off.
Right.
So I know that both of these creatures aren't sentient, but he's also got more of an ape type thing. So he is I'm trying to
kind of a pseudo intelligence in a sense. Yeah.
So I know it's Star Wars Day, but I'm also kind of comparing it to like King Kong type deal.
No, yeah, that's fair.
And I feel like just with his opposable kind of like thumbs, and his claws and stuff, I feel like the Gorog would win it.
Man, I'm hurt. But that's
mainly because if that Gorog can grab the Greater Krayt Dragon's neck,
yeah, that's true.
At any point, it's over. Like the Greater Krayt Dragon can, if it gets a bite, it could
stand a chance.
It could stand a chance, and it could result in actually possibly a tie.
Right. True.
Just the Gorog takes out the Greater Krayt Dragon, and then right as he finishes, Gorog dies
over and goes down. That's fair.
So.
But I guess you're right. Yeah, with the Krayt Dragon, it's kind of like you pick up a snake, you don't pick it up by the tail, you pick it up by the head because then it's less mobile. Just in the same way, if you grab the Krayt. And now, does the Krayt Dragon fly to any extent?
It does not.
It does not. Okay, so it's a stationary, grounded lizard, reptile, whatever.
Yes.
Gotcha.
I didn't find anything because, like I said, there isn't much resources on either of them.
Sure.
Funny thing. Greater Krayt Dragon is in. If you guys remember that old, what is it? Board tabletop game. It's in D&D for the Rise of Tiamat is based off of it.
Really?
Yeah.
So now we got some Star Wars intermixing with Dungeons and Dragons. That's really cool.
Yeah. But I mean, I looked into just normal Krayt Dragons, and they struggle with Rancors.
Gotcha.
Just a normal one.
Sure.
And so, I mean, even with a greater one versus the Gorog, I feel just the Gorog would take it out. Sure. And it's not another argument that could be made for the Greater Krayt Dragon is, it could wrap its tail around, Gorog's neck, stuff like that. But again, I still feel like the Gorog would take it, either by just sheer choking the life out of the greater Krayt dragon, or just like, maybe if there's trees around. I mean, it's got the claws; it can grab onto something. Maybe it'd be smart enough to jam a tree, break a tree down, and jam it into the greater Krayt dragon.
Sure.
I'm not saying like
just sit on it.
I'm not saying it's like sentient or anything.
Sure.
But like,
even like monkeys and apes have been known to use sticks and stuff to smack other animals. So I guess that's
just
fair.
to grab it. So
all right. I'll take the loss on this one. I'll give victory to Sly Elsewhere.
Victory.
Having the stronger monster here.
There's a couple monsters I was kind of hoping you guys would go with. I would have loved to see the Zillow Beast out here.
Yep. That makes sense.
Talked about that too.
Yep.
No. What was it? I mean, if you guys did smaller monsters, obviously I'd guess a Rancor, but like,
sure, they're some terrifying, gross, nasty beasts.
There's some gross ones out there.
Although I believe in Star Wars: The Force Unleashed, the original game, the Rancors were depicted as being a bit cooler. I'm not going to say they're not still kind of a freaky, gross thing, but like they can move pretty fast and stuff when it comes down to it. So
we haven't really seen like, it's kind of sad, during the apocalypse we might not, or we won't see much of the movies anymore. But
that's
like
true.
The only time we've seen a Rancor was in episode 6, and then I don't even think in the great Clone Wars show that there was a Rancor.
Yeah, I don't think so. I watched through that not too long ago just to kind of get back into the mood.
But the two creatures you guys have brought to me, I would love to, or wish that I could see them on the big screen.
Right.
That's right. We'll send a letter to whatever's left of Disney in the apocalypse.
Yeah,
I think that'd be very interesting.
Where's Gorog and the greater Krayt dragon?
Yeah. Let's see it happen. And maybe we'll throw in the Sando Aqua monster just to if it like pops out of the water like Godzilla or something.
Now, what if you had like something like just out of curiosity here? What if you had something like the Rancor versus like the Wampa or something?
Ooh. I think so if it was a Rancor versus a Wampa, Wampas are pretty nasty, but I think size comparison, I think the Rancor would win against the Wampa.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Instead of a lightsaber chopping off the Wampa arm, it would be the Rancor just ripping out,
chomp into it. Yep. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. The only thing I can think of is that the Wampas they're not sentient, not necessarily, but they are. When you take them back and they freeze their victims to the ceiling so they can save them for later. So I don't know if there's some sort of intelligence there that maybe they might be able to think of something to beat the Rancor in that way. But that's my only. Because I was thinking probably the Rancor would win, like I said, just based off of size.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The Rancors are just so cool in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And another fight I'd like to see them face is it's called the Akeley.
Oh yeah.
The Akeley, from episode 2, and the Coliseum battles with the Nexus.
He's just chasing what's his face around.
Anakin, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like seeing one of those face off against the Rancor would be pretty interesting.
That would be really cool. Yeah, that'd be an awesome battle to watch.
Yeah, I would argue that the Nexu would possibly win against the Rancor just through sheer speed.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Just can't catch it. Yeah, no, that'd be a cool one too. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, there it is. Like I said, I admit defeat. Sly Elsewhere had the more powerful monster over here, choosing the Gorog over the greater Krayt dragon. Just want to say a huge thank you to our guest for being on today and being our Star Wars expert.
Definitely.
Sharing his knowledge and wisdom of the Force and all things related.
Problem.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate it. Slide, we got some merch that we're going to go send over to our good friend Aaron here, who's our Star Wars Jedi Master.
Yes, we have these T-shirts that Anthony found, Anthony, our raccoon producer, for those of you that may not know about him, he usually is our merch provider. He goes out and finds stuff. So we found some T-shirts. They are Stag Wads. They're as close as we get Star Wars. There's some old, I think, bachelor party shirts. So we're sending those out. Get them signed by all of us here at Apocalypse Bro Studios. So we'll get
Send them by Raven.
Send them, yes,
absolutely.
yeah, by Raven, by horse, whatever.
We're still working on those carrier pigeons.
Yeah, they're feisty now in the apocalypse.
Just don't seem to want
They're
to
twice the size of regular pigeons.
But they have twice the just stupidness. So awesome. Well, thank you again, Aaron. We're going to send you that merch. And again, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom on this special Star Wars edition episode of the Apocalypse Bros.
No, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Have a safe time out in the apocalypse and keep on surviving.
Yeah, you too.
Will do. Awesome. All right. Well, again, that was, that's pretty much our episode. I mean, we don't really have anything to end it off with aside from, if you get some kind of chance to go out there, and I think VCR players still works. If you find a VCR player with a good old copy of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, pop that thing in there, get some kicks from Jar Jar Binks. Enjoy that just amazing, beautiful piece of science fiction art.
Yes.
And have a happy Star Wars Day.
Enjoy.
This has been SOS.
And this has been Sly Elsewhere.
And we are the Apocalypse Bros.